S, because it wasn't just about slang or technology, it was about the eternal gap between generations trying to understand each other. Even now, fans on social media share that clip again and again, saying this was the moment they fell in love with Phil Dunphy. And they are right. That was the second the show found its voice, the perfect mix of awkward and sweet, simple and laid, silly and profound, all in one misunderstanding. The writers didn't try to make Phil look dumb. They made him human, and that's the real power of Modern Family's humor. It laughs with people, not at them. That's why that first joke stayed iconic. It wasn't just funny, it was full of heart. And in that single moment, every dad who's ever tried to use teenage slang felt seen. Every kid who's ever cringed at their parents felt understood. And that's what made Modern Family unforgettable. From that very first episode, it wasn't just about families being different. It was about families being the same in the ways that mattered most, no matter how much the world changed, no matter what new slang came up. That love, that effort to connect, would always be funny and always be beautiful. After that legendary first episode, Modern Family didn't just become another sitcom, it became a cultural reset. People didn't realize at first that what they saw in that single joke, that why the face line, was actually a blueprint for everything the show would become. Because it wasn't about jokes that made you laugh for a second. It was about humor that stayed with you, humor that lived inside real life moments. And the writers built the entire show around that idea. Each character in Modern Family was written like a mirror of someone we know, and that's why the jokes worked so perfectly. Phil Dunphy's misunderstanding of slang wasn't just a joke about a dad being out of touch. It was a moment about love, about trying too hard to connect, and that theme stretched across all 11 seasons, even when the jokes got bigger, even when the stories got louder, that quiet, real kind of humor never left. When you watch the later seasons, you'll notice how the writers always tried to recreate that magic, those small, human misunderstandings that made you laugh because they were true, not because they were exaggerated, but none of them ever reached the purity of that first one, because that one came from something fresh, something that hadn't been done before, a father trying to speak the language of his kids and failing in the most wholesome way possible. And that's what made Modern Family stand out. While other sitcoms were busy building punchlines, Modern Family was building moments. It was giving us stories that made us laugh and cry at the same time. Moments where we'd laugh at Phil for saying something silly. But then a few seconds later, we'd feel for him because we knew he meant well. And deep down, that's how families are. Full of love, full of mistakes, full of forgiveness. Phil's character became a symbol of the modern parent, always learning, always behind but never giving up. And that's why fans connected with him so much. That one scene in the pilot became his entire identity. It defined the heart of the series. And even as the seasons went on, even as he got older, even as technology changed, Phil was still that same guy, trying to keep up with the world, one meme and one misunderstanding at a time. The writers of Modern Family understood something that many comedies forget. That the best jokes don't come from cleverness, they come from honesty, from watching real people try to navigate love and chaos. That's why the Face wasn't just funny, it was true. And truth never gets old, it stays funny forever because it's real. Even years after the show ended, fans still quote that line. They make memes, they post clips, and every time someone new discovers the show, they laugh at that same joke the same way the audience did back in that timeless comedy, the kind that doesn't age, because it's about human connection, not trends or references. When you look at other iconic moments in Modern Family, like Cam's dramatic baby reveal, or Gloria's mispronunciations, or Claire's constant eye rolls, you realize all those moments come from the same as that first joke, humor built on love, humor built on family. And that's why even though the show had hundreds of jokes, none of them could ever top the first one. Because that one wasn't just line, it was a heartbeat. And there's something almost poetic about that. That the very first laugh in the series set a standard that no one could ever beat. It's like the show started at its highest truth and then spent 11 years reminding us of it, every episode echoing that same idea. Families might not understand each other perfectly, but they'll always keep trying. And that effort, that clumsy, beautiful effort, is where the laughter lives. If you think about it, the The why the face joke did something deeper than making people laugh. It made viewers feel safe. It showed that misunderstanding someone doesn't mean you don't love them. It means you're human. And that's the essence of Modern Family. A show where imperfection was celebrated, where flaws were funny but also lovable, and where every smile came with a little piece of. That's why no matter how many clever jokes came after, none could top it. Because that first one wasn't just written, it was felt. It came from a real understanding of what it means to be a family in the modern world, where language. As Modern Family continued its journey through the years, that one tiny moment from the very first episode kept echoing like a memory that never faded. The why the face line became more than a joke. It became a symbol of what the show stood for. The connection between love and misunderstanding, the bridge between generations, the soft laughter that lives in every home, because every family, no matter how modern or traditional, has its own version of that moment when someone tries to say the right thing but ends up saying something hilarious instead. When fans rewatch the show, they always go back to that scene, not just because it's funny, but because it feels real. It feels like something that could happen to anyone. A dad trying too hard to sound young, a kid trying not to cringe, a family caught between laughter and love. That's what Modern Family did best. It showed how comedy could come from truth, from awkwardness, from care that doesn't always come out perfectly but still means everything. As the series went on, the writers tried to capture that same feeling again and again, sometimes through Phil's endless dad jokes, sometimes through Gloria's wild energy, sometimes through Mitchell and Cameron's sweet chaos. But the heart of it all always came back to that first spark, that reminder that humor isn't about perfection, it's about humanity. And that's what made Modern Family so special. It wasn't just a show. It was a reflection of us all. In later seasons, you could almost see how Phil's why the face energy shaped the tone of the entire show. He became the emotional anchor of the comedy, the guy who could make you laugh and cry within the same scene. And that's what audiences adored. His innocence, his sincerity, his effort to stay connected in a world that was moving too fast. And that joke from the pilot captured all of it in a few simple words. When the final season aired, and fans knew the show was coming to an end, many people started posting their favorite moments, but again and again, the clip from the first episode kept reappearing, people saying things like "This was the moment fell in love with the show," or "This one line explains everything about Modern Family." And they were right, because that joke didn't just make us laugh, it made us understand what the show was really about, that no matter how many times life changes, the heart of a family stays the same. Even the cast members talked about it in interviews. Ty Burrell, who played Phil, once said that when he first read that line, he didn't know it would become so iconic. He just thought it was funny and sweet. But once the episode aired, people started quoting it everywhere, and he realized it captured Phil's soul, the mix of cluelessness and love that made him unforgettable, and that's when he understood. Sometimes the smallest lines carry the biggest tear. Modern Family was full of amazing writing, but the reason this one joke could never be topped is because it happened naturally. It wasn't trying to be the funniest, it was trying to be honest, and honesty always wins. The writers didn't plan for it to become legendary. They just wrote what felt real, and real things always last the longest. When you think about it now, more than a decade after that first episode aired, the world has changed so much. Technology, language, even the way we communicate. But that why the face joke still feels just as funny, just as warm, because every generation still has that same struggle. Parents trying to keep up, kids trying to understand, everyone trying to connect in their own way. And that's why Modern Family still feels alive, still feels relevant. If you watch the finale and then go back to that very first episode, you'll notice something emotional. The characters grew older, the stories evolved, but the heart stayed the same. That light-hearted misunderstanding at the start became a memory of where it all began, a symbol of the love that carried through every season. And it reminds you that no matter how far you go, you always return to the moments that made you who you. And that's exactly why that joke was never topped. Because it wasn't just written for laughs, it was written with heart. It was written with truth. It was written with love. And love is something you can't improve. You can only feel it again and again. Every time you hear Phil say, "Why the face?" you're not just hearing a line. You're hearing the heartbeat of a show that changed television, a show that taught us that laughter and love are the same language, just spoken in different tones. So even after 11 seasons, after hundreds of jokes, after years of laughter, Modern Family's best joke will always be that first one. Because it didn't just start the show, it defined it forever, reminding us that the best humor isn't about being smart or trendy. It's about being real, about loving the people who make you laugh, even when you don't understand them. Because at the end of the day, that's what family really is. When the final season of Modern Family aired, fans from all around the world felt something shift inside them. It wasn't just the end of a show. It was the end of an era. For over a decade, people had grown up with these characters, laughed with them, cried with them, and learned something from them. And as the last episode came closer, everyone started remembering where it all began. That feist episode, that feist laugh, that feist unforgettable joke. The why the face moment that started it. Oh, in the final episode, as we saw the family saying goodbye, packing their memories, hugging each other, it almost felt like that feist joke had come full circle, because the same innocence, the same warmth that defined the show from day one was still there. The way Phil looked at his family with that same goofy love, the way he tried to make everything okay with a smile, it reminded fans that time may pass, but the heart of Modern Family never changed. After the finale aired, social media exploded with posts, people writing about how they had grown up watching the show, how that why the face line still made them laugh after all these years. Some said it was the first Modern Family moment they ever saw, and it instantly made them fans. Others said they used that line with their own families, turning it into a private joke at home. That's how powerful it became. It crossed the screen and entered real life. M started flooding the internet again. Clips from the pilot resurfaced everywhere. Fans editing emotional montages that began with that line, showing how far the characters had come, from that one silly misunderstanding to full lifetime of stories, and it made people realize something deeper. That the best part of Modern Family wasn't the jokes or the plots, it was the feeling it left behind, the sense that laughter could hold a family together. The why the face line became a symbol of how small moments can become timeless, how something so simple can carry meaning that lasts forever. It wasn't planned. It wasn't forced. It was pure. And that purity is what made it unforgettable. Even the younger generation, kids who started watching Modern Family years after it ended, still laugh at that line like it just aired yesterday, because emotion behind it never fades. If you think about how the show evolved, how it tackled serious issues like growing up, aging, identity, love, and loss, you'll notice that its humor was always grounded in empathy. And that's exactly what that first joke represented. It wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a metaphor. It showed that families don't have to understand everything to love each other. Sometimes you just need to laugh through the confusion and keep going. Even in interviews years later, the cast still brings up that joke. Ty Burrell laughs and says he can't go a week without someone saying why the face to him. Julie Bowen, who played Claire, said that every time they're the pilot together, that moment still made them laugh like it was brand new. And that's when you realize the magic of Modern Family never really left. It lives on through moments like that. The joke also became a teaching moment for sitcom writing. People in the industry started pointing to it as an example of how to build character through comedy, not by forcing punchlines, but by revealing personality. In one line, you learned everything about Phil Dunphy, his innocence, his sincerity, his need to connect, and his boundless love for his family. That's what makes writing like that timeless. It speaks to something universal inside all of. Years later, when fans talk about Modern Family, they don't just talk about the finale or the big story arcs. They talk about that first laugh, that simple misunderstanding that said everything about what the show was and what it always stood for. Because in that laugh there was love, warmth, truth, and a reminder that it's okay not to understand everything as long as you keep trying. And maybe that's why Modern Family's best joke happened in the very first episode and was never topped, because it wasn't meant to be topped. It was meant to stay like a little heartbeat inside the story, a reminder that great comedy comes from great love. And great love always begins with something small, something human, something as simple as one dad saying something wrong and everyone else laughing because it felt more than a decade later. That joke still brings people together, still makes them smile, still makes them remember the joy of family dinners, inside jokes, and late-night laughter. It's become more than a line from a show. It's become a part of pop culture, a piece of shared memory, a lit.